Cyberpunk 2077 is an interesting case of a game. Developed by once hyper-respected developers CD Projekt Red, the game released in 2020. Wow, it's really only been 2 years since it came out, and caused an enormous shitstorm the likes of which hadn't been seen since the release of No Man's Sky. Now, unless you just woke up from a coma, which, if that's the case, hi, welcome back, glad you're here, you probably heard all about this, so I won't go into detail about it. Needless to say, there was a lot of backlash, and the game was a laughingstock for a while. It was treated how suburban moms treat homeless people, as a warning. Oh, you see them? Don't do what they did or you'll end up just like them. However, with the release and positive reception of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, which I haven't seen, people started to play the game again, and the reception of the game started to change. People were starting to say 2077 was good, and the dick riders for the game were saying that the game was always good. Now, I was convinced that Edgerunners was tricking people into thinking the game was good, much like Arcane being good tricked people into playing League of Legends. Arcane is more nefarious, though, because League of Legends has done more damage to society than crack. Anyway, I saw that Cyberpunk was on sale during the Steam Winter Sale, and decided to test my theory. And if you couldn't tell by the title of this video, I thought I was right. Hold on. I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, who the fuck is this guy, and why should I care about his opinion? You shouldn't. I want to preface this by saying that I won't be comparing the game to its original release. I did not play the game when it first came out, so I wouldn't be speaking from experience, only from what I've heard, and that's not something that I'm comfortable doing. Also, heads up, I will be spoiling most of the game, so if you care about that, then don't watch this video. Although I don't know why I'm saying that. If you cared about spoilers, one, you wouldn't have clicked on this video, and two, the game has been out for 2 years at this point. If you cared about spoilers, you would have played the game already. Before I talk about the game, though, I do want to talk about the advertising for the game, because Jesus Christ, I've never actually been frustrated at a trailer before this, and I wanted to throw a temper tantrum about it. So throughout most, if not all, of the promotional material, they were showing and talking about Jackie like he was going to be an incredibly important character in the story. But then in the trailer where they reveal that Keanu Reeves is in the game, they also show that Jackie dies, and it is nearly identical to what happens in the game, which is fucking baffling to me. Like, why go through the trouble of talking about Jackie just to spoil exactly how he dies like 2 years before the game comes out? I don't fucking get it. It is so confusing. It's like if HBO advertised Season 3 of Game of Thrones by showing the Red Wedding. It's just fucking stupid, and it makes me irrationally angry about something that is so unimportant. Let me talk about what I actually liked about the game first. The best part of the game, in my opinion, is the graphics/art direction. Now, I have a good computer, so I was able to run the game on max settings, even though my computer felt like it was about to overheat, and sounded like a jet engine taking off the entire time I was playing the game. The game looked great, no complaints there. I am a sucker for the cyberpunk aesthetic, though, so that might be why I liked it so much. Night City felt oppressive and grimy, which it seemed like that's the tone the game is going for, and I'd say they nailed it. They really made Night City look and feel like a terrible place to live. Kind of like Ohio. However, that's really the only completely positive thing I have to say about the game. Everything else I have mixed feelings on, which is really disappointing because I feel like there is a good game underneath all of the shit. The saving grace of any game for me is the gameplay. It can be the biggest, smelliest pile of shit, but if it tastes good, I will still eat it. That's not a good analogy, but I think you get what I mean. If the game is fun to play, I'll still enjoy it, even if everything else around it is terrible. Unfortunately, that's not the case for Cyberpunk. Parts of the gameplay are good, but then there are issues with other parts of it that just totally ruin the experience for me. Prime example being driving. Driving on motorcycles is good for the most part, but driving in cars is a miserable experience, much like my life. It feels like taking two magnets, putting one on top of a table, one on the bottom, and moving them around like that. They have zero turn radius, and if you even so much as tap one of the buttons that isn't forward, you immediately start spinning out, and if you try to fix it, you immediately start spinning out in the opposite direction. Also, driving in a car is just unrealistic because the roads are narrow and congested with traffic, meaning it's nearly impossible to drive around traffic like you can do in GTA. It was so much easier to just ride a motorcycle because I could disobey all the rules of the road on one. I can't drive 150 miles an hour driving on the wrong side of the road and swerving in and out of traffic in real life. At least let me do it in a video game. I mean, I could do that in real life, but like, I'm not suicidal, so... The same issue also extends to combat. For my full playthrough, I was using the monowire, which is like a whip thing that comes out of your arm. That felt great and was a lot of fun, but I did like 3/4 of a playthrough with guns, and they did not feel good. I felt like every gun had just too much recoil, and the hit registration just felt off. Now, take that with a grain of salt, because I am terrible at shooters, despite everyone thinking I was going to be one in high school. But I have played a lot of them, and I like to think that I can recognize when it doesn't feel good to shoot guns, and it doesn't feel good to shoot guns in this game. Also, quick hacking was the weirdest part. It felt good and bad at the same time. Using quick hacks was fun, but the process of using them was super jank. The scanner was super finicky and sometimes just didn't work. I was fighting the scanner more than I was fighting the enemies, which is obviously not a good thing. Also, one last thing, stealth feels almost entirely useless. It felt like you could successfully stealth for like maybe a minute, and then the whole map just auto-detects you, and there's nothing you can do about it. It got to the point that I wouldn't even bother trying to stealth. Any mission where they were telling me that I should be quiet and sneaky, I was like, fuck that, and just ran in and killed everything because I am a true Sigma Giga Shed. Okay, minor nitpicks before I move on to the next section. I could never actually tell if armor was doing anything. I would equip new armor, and I could never tell if I was any tankier or not. Crafting didn't really feel worth it because it leveled up way too slow. I could craft like 20 weapons and only get like a level and a half in crafting. Just make it like Skyrim where you can craft like 20 iron daggers and get to a level 100 in smithing. Also, areas in the game are level gated, which I think is an outdated design for an open world game. It's also an issue because most of the time I could not tell what part of the map I was in, so I would try to attack an enemy and then get one shot. You know, I'm starting to realize that a lot of my complaints might just stem from me being bad at video games. Nah, it's the game's fault, not a skill issue. Moving on. However, one thing that I don't really have anything positive to say about is the story. It's honestly a little impressive how much they missed the mark on this, considering CD Projekt Red was known for writing good stories. It's kind of like if LeBron James all of a sudden became the worst player in the NBA by miles. It'd be kind of impressive how much he had fallen, and you'd have to wonder what the hell happened. The biggest issue I have with the story is Keanu Reeves as Johnny Silverhand. But Keanu Reeves is such a good guy, why do you have an issue with him? That's the issue. The casting is so against type that it is distracting. It's like if you're making a movie about Anne Frank and you cast Kanye West as Anne Frank. Johnny Silverhand is objectively a terrible person. He's an abusive asshole and also a terrorist that would make Osama bin Laden blush. I mean, the dude set off a fucking nuke in the middle of Night City, for fuck's sake. So why is like the nicest person in the world playing him? Now, I don't have an issue with casting against type, especially if the person cast is a good actor. The issue with that is that Keanu Reeves is not that good of an actor from what I've seen of him. If Johnny wasn't an important character, it wouldn't really bother me that much, but he's literally the most important character in the game, and he's around a lot, so it bothers me a lot. Literally, any time Johnny was talking, I was thinking to myself, I cannot believe that they actually had Keanu Reeves record these lines. And if that was the only issue with the story, it wouldn't be that much of a deal breaker for me. But wait, there's more. I'm about to butcher the fuck out of some Japanese names, so I apologize in advance. During the prologue of the game, you witness Yorinobu Arasaka, the heir to the Arasaka Corporation, murder his father Saburo. To be fair though, Saburo had it coming. He was old as shit in at death's door anyway. Show him furry porn and he'd probably keel over and die right there. Anyway, this is played like it's going to be one of the main focuses of the plot, and that it's going to revolve around stripping Yorinobu of his power and exposing him for his crimes. Now, for the most part, it is a driving point for one part of the plot, specifically for Takamura and his quests. But once Takamura dies, it kind of seems like they just forgot about that entire plot point. Speaking of Takamura's death, it is so unceremonious. The room you're in kind of just explodes, and then you wake up and Johnny tells you that he's dead, and you just move on. Okay, so when I was writing this, I didn't know there was a way to save Takamura, so whoops. But my point still stands. If you don't save him, his death is still so sudden. He's an incredibly important character, and he deserved better. After Takamura dies, there's one conversation about exposing Yorinobu, and then it seems like it's just totally forgotten. Now, I did Pan Am's ending, so it might be resolved in one of the other endings, but if that's true, why is one of the major plot points' resolution locked behind a specific ending? Maybe I'm just an entitled little shit, or I missed something, but I feel like if something is set up as part of the plot, the resolution to it should be in all endings, and not locked behind one specific ending. Also, one of the major plot points is that you're slowly dying because the chip in your head is killing you and you don't have a lot of time left. Throughout the whole game, they're reminding you about this and that your condition is getting worse. Just a word of advice to all of the zero video game writers that are watching this video, don't do that in an open world game. The game can take a theoretically infinite amount of time to complete, so telling me that I only have a limited amount of time left to live just doesn't make sense unless you actually impose a time limit on the player. Another word of advice to video game writers, don't impose a time limit in an open world game. If I can spend as long as it takes for that one friend to get on after they say they'll be on in 5 minutes to beat the game, but the game is constantly telling me that I don't have a lot of time left, it creates this really weird disconnect. Like, if they just scrapped that whole concept and made it so that you just wanted Johnny out of your head, that would be so much better in my opinion. Not only does it solve the issue of false urgency, Johnny is a fucking dick, so it would make sense why you don't want him in your head. Overall, I'm left conflicted on Cyberpunk 2077. I can tell that the game wants to be good, but it just isn't quite there yet. It's like if M. Night Shyamalan was a video game. It's trying really hard to be good, but the only time that it is good is an accident, and most of the time it's just a pile of shit. That's a little extreme, but I think you get the picture. Really, the only time I had fun with the game was when I wasn't actively engaging with it and just doing my own thing, which I guess you could argue is the point of an open world game. 5 out of 10, could be better. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I do genuinely appreciate it. It took me forever to make this because I procrastinate a lot and I'm very lazy and I don't know how to use Premiere. So it's nice that you validated my suffering. Like, comment, subscribe, all that shit, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video, I guess. Peace.